TV has really become the starting point of omnichannel marketing in healthcare. I think in digital marketing, we often say omnichannel, but we really talk about multi-channel, just showing up across different channels and different environments. And I think the distinction with omnichannel is really the orchestration of all those touch points so that you can use them to complement each other and move a patient or physician towards an outcome. And TV is this incredible mass reach vehicle, incredibly engaging format, creates salience. And now with the digital signals that we can understand, all right, TV is a starting point, but then what's the next best action? What's the next best engagement to reach a user, when outside of TV, when they're on their phone, when they're on their computer, on a digital out-of-home screen, et cetera. And so that has become a really powerful way to start the conversation and then continue it across other channels. And a lot of that is driven by just the critical mass of CTV adoption too.
Baron, in keeping with that idea of an omni-channel, multi-channel world that audiences are in, I want to know what's changed in audience targeting that makes TV more actionable, particularly for healthcare, than it was, say, just a few years ago?
Yeah, I think like I was saying, the critical mass of CTV, now we have the signals to use data, and with partners like Swoop, we can target relevant ads to the relevant audiences at the relevant times. And beyond that, we're able to manage frequency. We're able to control the experience that a patient or an HCP has with the brand. And then ultimately, that leads to more effectiveness. And we have the signals to measure the outcomes, whether that's a high value action, a doctor's visit, ultimately a prescription.
Baron, the term precision at scale sounds like a pretty obvious, self-evident term, but what does it actually look like? And in particular, what are healthcare brands looking for when it comes to precision at scale in CTV?
Yeah, I think we throw around the phrase precision at scale. We throw that around a lot. I think if we break it down, on one hand, the precision is about being able to target those relevant users with relevant ads, having the data, partners like Swoop, to find the right audiences, and so we can do that now with more precision. But then when we talk about scale, it's not just about CTV and having the technical capability or the integrations to serve ads across premium TV environments, but then again, when we talk about scale beyond TV, the other channels where we can continue that conversation, move a user along the patient or physician journey, the path to conversion. It's really important to be able to see that user not only on the TV, but then again, when they're on their phone or when they're on their computer, that helps educate and ultimately bring the patient and physician together to have a conversation that leads to a treatment.
Baron, all marketers have to operate under the pressure to prove outcomes, but healthcare marketers have to, a lot more hurdles to bear than general marketers do. So with that in mind, how is TV fitting into that measurement story?
Yeah, I think to your point, pharma marketers are under a lot of pressure, a lot of scrutiny, to prove that marketing is actually leading to outcomes. And I think in this moment, there are so many macro factors. You look at regulatory changes, pressure on pricing, tariffs, inflation, patent cliffs, for different manufacturers. So, financial discipline is incredibly important, and typically TV budgets can be upwards around 50% of a brand's total budget, and so that's way too large of an investment to sit outside of measurement. And I think that's why we're seeing this real acceleration of budget shifting from linear TV into connected TV, because now we have those digital signals to actually tie the exposure to performance, ultimately to revenue and ROI. And now that allows marketers to prove the efficacy of the investment.
Baron, the start of a new year is always a good time to rethink and look for new opportunities. What's your sense of the biggest opportunity for healthcare marketers that they're still leaving on the table, maybe left on the table in 2025?
Yeah, I think the pharma as a category, like marketers are becoming much more innovative. I think there was a perception that pharma was always 5-10 years behind other categories in terms of using innovative practices. And I think we're seeing, especially with channels like CTV and just other digital channels, we see that adoption rate increasing. And I think even with the innovative marketers, sometimes there's a lot of focus on what ads they're buying or where they're placing ads, and not enough focus on how they're buying those ads. It's one thing to be able to say, like, I am buying ads on premium CTV inventory. But at the same time, if they're not analyzing the supply path to say, hey, there's money being siphoned off because there are intermediaries reselling inventory, or we're not managing frequency, so there's a lot of waste there. I think the marketers who win are going to be the ones who really understand the value of the ads they're buying, not just stopping at, hey, we're buying ads in these premium environments, because a lot of those inefficiencies can be hidden in surface level reporting. So it takes a little bit more rigor to demand transparency, to really make sure that your media is accountable to outcomes.